for what it's worth, I thought I'd give some advice that I thought I could impart to people younger than me anyway. I'm still young-ish, but I graduated university in 2010, a politics degree, and it was from the University of Liverpool, so they were around about 40th highest in the country. And in terms of was it worth it? No, it wasn't. My advice to students, if you are thinking about studying, would be this. Make sure you're prepared to do a degree where you're actually going to have to work and learn something that's applicable in the job market. Because if you're studying sort of social sciences, things like that, even psychology, it doesn't really you don't end up being a psychologist. You end up having to do an extra course on top of it, and you end up wasting your time just studying about the history of psychology and all of that stuff. Mostly it's a sort of money-making con, and there's a few exceptions to it. When I would say study the social sciences, which is if you're going to a top 5 university. I wouldn't really aim like top 10 minimum, because once you're done with that sort of thing, and you have one of those universities on your CV, you are a lot more likely to get employed. If not, and I say this because I worked briefly, I did some course feedback calls, and I was working for about maybe 40 different universities. Some of those were the University of Warwick and the University of Oxford. Calling those students that were from the high universities, they were more likely to find some, good academic placements afterwards that was nothing to do with their field. But by the time you came down and it was looking at top 20 universities, top 30 universities like me, you're just one of many. And remember, so many people get degrees now, it doesn't really sort you out. And even if you were going to a top university, I'd still say do something like a STEM, or at least do something like an economics that involves maths, and then you can be a bit more tasty to people within the finance world, which is what a big employment is within the UK. Here's the thing, stuff like engineering and medicine, architecture, these are hard courses. You will work hard, but there's a reason for it, because you're actually going to get a job at the end of it. If you sort of do the kind of course that I was doing, and my brother studied sports psychology, I think it was, and my sisters, they did film and literature, you get a good deal out of it in the sense that, you're in there maybe only 10 hours a week, and you don't even have to turn up to them. So in that sense, it's and that's what I heard, and that's why I went. But if you're looking at it from a perspective of actually getting a job at the end of it, not really. If you go to a really good university, you give yourself a chance. But study something. Something to do with computing sort of would be a good shot as well. But do your research and make sure not just that there's a good job at the end of it, but there's actually more demand than positions being filled. Because something like music production, that a friend of mine studied, that's brilliant. But there's that many jobs, and that many people studying it. Don't do something that's gonna give you a 99% chance of being unemployed. And that kind of loose idea that's sort of painted around by lecturers of transferable skills, I don't really buy into it. If you are intelligent and you work somewhere, you can build your way up. So my advice is, I know what you're probably thinking, which is, I want that university experience. That's certainly why I went there. Would I do that again, knowing what I know now with my life experiences? No, I'd go travelling instead. What you can do as an English speaker, particularly if you're from England, but they like other areas as well, you can get work as teaching English as a foreign language in Asia. And people were telling me about these placements, and they were living a very nice life. They had their own apartment all to themselves, kind of came with a swimming pool they could share and things like that. And they were saving about £1,000 a month after tax. I would have had a much better time doing that, and you could have partied a lot more, met a lot more interesting people, gone around the world and got more experiences that way. and it would have just been better. To be honest, everyone talks about the university times of the world. I think it's a bit of a myth. I think it's a bit wasted on the age that people are right there, because at 18 they're still very much learning to walk on their own 2 feet. And although it's a good thing to get away from home and live by yourself for a little while, yeah, there's better ways to do it, and you can actually make a profit from travel, which is far better. And I'd have come down. I'd have probably done that and travelled for a little bit, gone there, and to be honest, it got my shags up. And maybe that's not for everyone, and not what everyone's experiences. Certainly as a young man, that was a huge thing for me, a big deal. And I'm still happy I travelled later in life. I didn't go till 27, but yeah, I actually had the fun of fooling around and scratched that particular itch, which, yeah, some people could look at as being shallow and everything else, but to me, I think that there's a huge advantage in trying it out with quite a lot of different women, kind of finding out what you do like, what you don't, what you're happy with, and being more comfortable within yourself. So, yeah, maybe that's not for everyone, and not what your views are, but heck, certainly if you're a young man thinking about these things, I consider you a bit of a liar if you said you weren't interested in it. But if you're not, fair enough. Good on you, thank you, man. For me, no, I loved it. In terms of doing, would I have anything else I'd say? Probably not. I think that's probably it. Like, do be worried about everyone talking about the university experience, because I remember some people who went out maybe like twice in Freshers Week, which is when you're all supposed to go out and go crazy and stuff. And it was like, oh, we're coming out. It's like, oh, not tonight, not tonight. When eventually they mentioned it again about 6 months, a year later, or whenever it was, they're like, oh, we were crazy in Freshers Week, weren't we? And it's like hype on top of hype. Like, people don't do as much as they say they do, and for all of this, crazy experience that you sort of see on TV, people generally end up in their room playing FIFA, and generally dick about on the internet and stuff like that. And it's okay, but it's not the best use of your time, and it's not the biggest adventure. And again, if it's costing you money, if you could teach English as a foreign language and use that time, do that for 6 months, $6,000, travel for free, teach for another, you could probably, save up a good $8-9 a year while seeing a lot of the world. And, do that for 3 years, 4 years, come back, and you've got sort of 25k in the bank. Yeah, that's a heck of a lot better if you do want to go out and travel it. And if you come back and you're ready and you really decide there's a course you actually want to do, actually want to go there, then great. That would definitely be the other thing I'd say, because here's what happened to me. I was at the university from 2007 to 2010, and the market had its big crash in 2008, and then you couldn't get a job in the summer, and moving on. What I should have done is a heck of a lot of volunteering, and the beautiful thing about volunteering is you can just do it once a week, if you want it, once a month even. They're not going to say no. I volunteered eventually after uni, so too late really, with the children's charity Bernardo's. Take a pick. Do a couple, to be honest. And even if you're doing an hour a month or whatever, and if you keep that over a few years, you've got 4 years worth of volunteering on your CV there. I don't know how much you can do, and you can lie and say, oh well, it varied, but I did X amount of hours or whatever. And you've got something that's kind of make you more interesting, that when your CV stands out when companies are looking at it. And when you're in the interview, and that's probably the key, the hardest thing is trying to give examples of what you've done, and all you can talk about is your course. It's crap. Far more better is that practical application. Been talking about times of having to deal with difficult kids, or help them with personal care or something like that. That eventually led me to break the cycle of what I was when I first got out, which was long-term unemployed. It was a very slow couple of years, and it was only volunteering that got me out. So I wish I'd done some of that while at university. So prep for the worst. I had a very ignorant time of it growing up, because from 97 to 2007, it was just the economy kept booming. It was mostly in the main just good news stories, and everyone was like, oh, and we had the Labour government in at the time that was massive on education. It was like, yeah, everyone needs to get a degree, it'll work out, but it doesn't, because the brand gets diluted, and when everyone's got a degree, everyone's the same, and that's when it comes down to what you actually know and what you've learned. And again, I steer mostly clear of social sciences or anything that's really not going to lead to work at the end of it. Even business studies, it's too vague. Study something like economics. Study something going into the grounds of finance where you actually have to work and do the sums, but you will have to work and be clever, but that's why you should be going. And if you are just looking to have fun and party, for God's sake, just travel a bit. It's so much better. So much more fun. You'll meet more people. And you'll go. So go only if you are prepared to learn and are prepared to do a good course. Don't do it for a delay, because, let's be honest, it's kind of logical, but it's just not sold as the truth. And the truth is this: if you take 3 years off just to get drunk, it's gonna hurt you. It's gonna have a negative impact financially and on your future, and that just makes perfect sense. But it's not branded that way, so all graduates earn this much. Not all graduates are created equally, and it's important to understand that, and there's a lot of universities kicking around that, in my opinion, just probably shouldn't be open. Like studying politics, how many people work in Parliament, how many people work in politics? Well, MPs is maybe what? Top of my head, about 700, something like that. You know, even in my one university ranked 40, how many people were taking that course? 200? 300? What? Maybe it's 150 per year group, so 450, something like that. That's each university working out. That's one age group. So in these 10,000 people that are studying at even halfway respectable universities, how many of them are working at it? Like 1%? 2%? Something like that? And you might find, like I did when studying it, you're not really that interested in it, especially if you don't want to work or for either of the two political parties, because you don't really see much common ground with them. On top of that, I suppose the only other thing is, like, people would be like, oh well, get a master's, it'll make you stand out. You're just investing more time and more money into something that probably wasn't the best idea in the first place. Again, there's a good course worthwhile. Engineering, medicine would be the top ones for me. Architecture is hard, but you know where you're going with it. Do the research, make sure that there's actually more demand outstrips what supply there is. I believe that's the case for engineering. They can't find enough good ones, so look into it. But the STEM is a good place to go. Don't flip around trying to do sort of creative fields. I wouldn't. Like, for example, my let's call that a plan, after graduating was to do stand-up comedy. I was like, well, audience of 1,000 people, make £2 off each of them. Yeah, £2 a night, 1 hour's work, can't go wrong, can it? There's a queue. There's a long queue of very talented people, and in stand-up it's about 10 years of doing it for free, effectively losing money, paying all that money for travel before you expected to make it. Which probably means, maybe getting a couple of £100 for a gig, if you're lucky, and that's if you make it. And then at the very, very top, there's the people there who are making, millions a year, but there's a very select few places that people doing it that are on TV, and it's the same with musicians. Take your pick, actors. And there is a tendency to always hear the stories of the people that make it, and the story of the 99.9% that don't. Even of that 99.9% that don't, there's probably at least 10% of that has worked ridiculously hard, has put in the hours, probably even has the talent, and still doesn't make it. Just play the odds, and I'd go with something that the tricky bit is finding something you enjoy, and enjoy that someone will pay for, and I have not found that, and I think a lot of people haven't, but at least try and find a compromise, because heck, 30k, 40k a year coming in, don't knock it too much. You can do a lot with that, and rather than bumming around having nothing, and then, what was I doing, care work, was sort of the first, what I consider a proper job, after graduating, and eventually I've knocked around in quite a few more dead-end sort of places and got a role in insurance, although never particularly enjoyed it along with any of my financial services work, but it kept me going, and I could always quit, travel for a bit, come back, pick that up and go again, and that at least came in later in life and I was enjoying myself in that regard. Was that a good financial move? Probably not, but not everything's about finances. But again, as I say, if you want an experience, travel, and you can make money doing that, and you'll have a better time. If you want to start trying to make some money, which is the only reason you should go to uni, really, unless, I don't know, your financial situations are different to the 99% of the rest of us that will need to actually earn a living. Yeah, only go to university then if you're prepared to work hard and learn something that's you're going to come out of it and need, and be able to find a role in the job market. So that's what they won't tell you at these induction evenings when they show you around and they basically try and dupe you into studying their course, whatever it is, sociology or whatever. So that's some proper real advice, and good luck. It's not easy to try and make that decision. And to be honest, if you're really not sure what you want to study, taking a year and you don't want to travel, or you don't feel like you have the money, etc., etc., take a year of work. Just find any old job and do it, because you'll probably take studying a lot more seriously than if you've come just straight out of, sixth form education and then just jump straight in. You'll appreciate it more, which is no bad thing. But if you think money will be a problem when travelling, quick advice, just go to the cheaper countries. If you sort of travel a bit to South America and, the cheaper parts of Europe, so sort of the sort of communist bloc areas, or go down into the Balkans, you won't spend much money there at all and you'll be able to keep going. A few grand will keep you going for months if you're just sensible. Just ask how much stuff costs before you do it, and just cheap flights in and then travel by bus when you're on the ground. That'll do you just fine. If you go to expensive countries like comparable to the UK, then your money won't last as long. You're using public transport and paying for hostels will empty your wallet pretty quick. But depends where you go and what you do. But go to Asia, teach English as a foreign language, save £1,000 a month, new country, abroad. Yeah, it'll be a lot more interesting to the local women. Generally I do that because that's what I wanted anyway. I wanted some fun and some adventure, and not to have to work and take it seriously. And if I had done that, I'd had a lot better time, and I would have come back, 25 grand more in my pocket most likely. And that's a heck of a thing. Alright, so just watch my clip. A couple of things I'll just add, just as I wrap it up. Some other cheaper countries. Asia's pretty cheap, to be honest, and India, Sri Lanka, that sort of area, that's really cheap too. I haven't actually I've been to Sri Lanka, but not to India. I'd really like to go, but yeah, those are other things. Anything else that I really wanted to say? Yeah, I mean, in creative fields, if you do something creative, as in sort of marketing or online design and stuff like that, I don't know for sure, but I think there are opportunities there, to be fair. So yeah, it is a case of just doing research and picking your battles if you do want to do it. Also, the other thing about if you're just not sure either way and just working for a while, that is probably the best way you're ever going to know to find out the kind of things that you do like doing, and somewhere that you would be interested to go into. I mean, some of the career I couldn't take now because it would be too long to go back in and redo it and then be pushing 40 by the time I was done, but what's it called? A fund manager. So an investment fund manager. I completed the wrong degree, would have had to have retaken maths for an A-level as well. I stopped taking it at AS level.
I would have liked doing that job, like genuinely. Whether I've got it in me to work that hard to do it, know what I mean? That's probably debatable. But yeah, I could have done that, and I could have found a route to do that had I know it existed. But it was a very specific way to get through. So again, yeah, if you're just picking any old subject for the sake of it, don't, because you're kind of stuck with it then. I see it with people now, like an old colleague at work, his kids didn't want to go to university, then changed their mind, and then they're studying things like media studies. Again, what would you realistically do with media studies? Just think about it, and it's always good to at least have a plan B, and if you do change your mind midway through your course, or realise at the end, okay, I'm not going to do this, fair enough. But at least give yourself a chance to be in something at the end of it that you can actually do. So, yeah, I think that's anything I can say about that. If that's of any use to anyone, then fair play. But if you hear the course saying, when it's trying to say what it's worth doing, or why it's worth doing it, they start talking about transferable skills rather than where the job is at the end, I'd honestly love to steer clear of it. By all means, if you're really that enthusiastic about it and want to go for it, do go for it, but for what it's worth, they're my words of caution. Okay, one final point. I'm not saying don't do creative activities or don't strive to try and do it for its job, just have it going on in the background as something you do as a side project, or have work and then, I don't know whether there's an open university or other courses like that you can do something like that. Just don't invest a full 3 years of your life into that thoroughly, because it's probably not going to come off, and it's better to be building a sort of a career on the side for yourself through one means or another. That's actually, a likely end result of money, than it is to just put all your eggs in that one basket that probably won't work. That's all I'd say. Best of luck.